today I might lose some friends, but I want to explain this. This is something that has kind of bothered me for a while, and I find it extremely arrogant and condescending. And it's this idea from both sides, from theists and atheists, especially those that are on the fence. It's this idea of who am I to tell other people there is no God? Who am I to make people lose hope? You know, who am I to destroy their beliefs if it makes them happy? And my point is, who are you to not tell them the truth? Who are you to decide for them what they should or shouldn't hear? If they don't want to hear it, and they tell you no, and reject it, fine. I get that, and that's perfectly fine. We shouldn't force it. But you shouldn't decide for someone before they've even heard the evidence, or even been asked if they want to. You should be given the opportunity. Especially here this with the clergy project. And I understand this, and I understand perfectly well where they're coming from. And also the more liberal pastors understand the problems with the Bible, the contradictions and stuff. They realize this, but they're not telling the congregation because they feel that the congregation isn't ready for it. Who are they to destroy their congregation's faith and stuff? And it's this whole, majority of them probably aren't going to want to know about this. They're probably going to get upset, and that's fine, then you stop. But I find this, incredibly arrogant and sort of condescending, that people seem to think that nobody should hear about stuff because you're going to destroy something important to them, Yet, as much as there's going to be a lot of people that don't want to hear it, there's also going to be a lot of people that are going to be rather pissed off that you didn't tell them the truth. There's a lot of people that do want to know the truth, and are going to find it rather condescending and rude and inconsiderate not to tell them the truth. And this is the whole idea that we should shelter people from something that's uncomfortable. Just sort of there's a lot of atheists and agnostics and whatnot that are in the closet because they're afraid to speak out. And they're coming out of the closet now that atheism is more open about it. There's going to be a lot of people that probably would deconvert or would become, theistic evolutionists or whatever, more moderate and liberal if they knew this information. You're not helping them by holding back and pretending that, that it's not important for them to also know. And again, I'm not talking about those that, if I try to tell somebody the truth and they don't want to hear it, that's fine, But I shouldn't not try to tell people the truth for fear of what it does to them or the fear that they're not capable of understanding. Many aren't, but many also are, This is, like I said, it's what kept atheists in the closet for so long. Nobody wanted to speak up against religion. Nobody wanted to speak out, and there was many people that wanted to. But, you're the only person in one town that sees these issues. And you're beginning to wonder, am I crazy? Am I the only one that sees these contradictions in the Bible? Do I am the only one that sees these problems with religion? And now when people speak up, suddenly people have a voice. People have an ability to speak out. It's not you versus the world. It's you and others against the world. I mean, it's a bit extreme, but you know what I mean. People shouldn't be afraid of telling the truth, or at least, telling what we see as the truth, for fear of how others will react. You're not helping yourself or others. We're never going to change and grow if we're afraid to do it. What if Darwin decided, I'm not going to, for a long time he did struggle with this, issue. But what if in the end he decided, no, I'm not going to produce anything on natural selection, or even Galileo and all those people, discovered something that religion had issues with. I'm not going to speak about this. I'm not going to destroy people's faith. These people, the idea that the Earth is the center of the universe, or we God created us ex nihilo. All these things are incredibly important to people, and we shouldn't tell people to destroy their faith. Where would we be in science? Where would we be with knowledge? And where would we be if the church and people didn't spend 2,000 years, especially during the Dark Ages and whatnot, holding back on information because people were afraid of what it would do? It's not good to hold back for fear of reaction. If you're concerned about the ethical side of stuff like genetic manipulation, stem cells, that's one thing. But if you're doing it for fear of, how people react with new knowledge, that's something completely different. One thing to fear its usage, but to fear the knowledge of it doesn't help anything. Sorry, it's a bit rambly, but this is just one little topic that's kind of bothered me. Also, if you haven't posted a question for me for my question and answer, post one. I'd like to hear your questions for me.